It's not this one fixed position that my body gets into. It's how I move in and out of all of these different positions. If there's any area of your body that is unstable, it's these places, that's where tension often gets held. The more places that are unstable around your body, then the more tension gets built up. So you may be unstable around different areas. You may not be aware of where you're unstable. Let's say you're unstable around your feet or your ankles. This can cause a chain reaction to then cause other areas in the body to tense up. So the goal is to establish stability around the whole body. Now, this can be challenging if you've experienced injuries, if you're experiencing chronic pain, if you're experiencing any sort of chronic condition that's caused you to fear working with your body and feeling into your body. So today, Marcus and I are going to go through some considerations on how to build stability around your whole body so that then you can start to feel more relaxed in your experience to move through life with more freedom. So let's get into it.
Yeah. And the first step is always finding a way to connect with the body and feeling safer than before. Because often this unsafety is not is holding people back in really feeling the body and moving the body in the areas where it's needed. It's just like this threatened feeling. This sensation is threatening me. This sensation is threatening me. And this will cause this cascade where we stop moving, where we stop feeling the body. And yeah, this is when we are talking about stability and movement, not a good place to be. So it's
Mm,
just finding a simple way to connect. If it's just feeling your hands or touching your feet or something like that, to really feel like, oh, this is just a body and nothing to be scared of. This
mm.
can be hard.
And I was talking with a lady today, and she has had a background of pain, and particularly around the hips and the spine. And as she was talking about it, I was inquiring as to the timeline of that pain. And so in the beginning, the pain happened, whenever she was like going up steps. So she shifted onto one leg. She would go to lift her leg, and then a lot of pain would happen. And then she had to learn ways on how to like get up steps and kind of move around the pain, and then started to develop what we call movement compensations. And then the longer that went on, the more unstable she felt, which then led into any time she felt unstable, there was like this big gap of are not stable, oh, go into shock, and she would
Yeah.
fall. And these repeated experiences, just talking to what you're saying, Marcus, we can then start to fear the experience of feeling the body when we have all of this evidence that we've built of look at all of the challenges that my body is giving me. And so with what you're saying, what we're looking to do first is to start to even before and this is often a mistake that a lot of people make is when they're looking to like rehabilitate and why this lady she went and did all the things. She tried the yoga, she went to try chiropractors and all sorts of different things, but they weren't working because this experience in the body of I'm still afraid of even working with my body because I've had all these painful experiences that have built up. So we kind of at this stage need to take a bit more of an indirect approach of starting to build positive associations with connecting with the body before we even think about starting to do specific stability activities.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah. And that's often the tricky part where people get stuck. They are not realizing that the nervous system is constantly overloaded and then they are coming and smashing all the movement ideas into the system and start realizing, oh, this is not working.
mm,
And then they're trying with hypnosis and all that stuff. And even this will not work because they are still feeling threatened and scared, just feeling the body.
It reminds me when I was talking with this lady, when she had then shared her timeline of these experiences, I then asked her, I said, "So there was a time when this wasn't happening, right?" Because we often have that, it's like we we have this timeline of like the pain,
Yeah,
but then I asked her, "So what was happening before this?" And that's when then she she got into, yeah, there was some things happening and I was experiencing a lot of guilt and fear and these
yeah,
sorts of things in my body around this time, which then led to me being tense and then the injury, right?
yeah,
Yeah, and so often we need to come back to and face into these things that were happening that the body then started to essentially like become an expression of these things, these tensions and stuck and blocked emotional states.
yeah. I had a session the other day with the Aizuki Pro, and he needed a speed consultation because he's in playoffs at this
Mm,
point, and he had intense back pain. And then I started talking to him, and there were some big decisions for him to make in terms of next year contracts. And those things were spread up over several weeks because his actual club is having some financial troubles and all that stuff. And after all this period, he started to feeling his back pain. So it was just mainly caused by emotional challenges. And we just looked at this. We did some simple things, feeling safe again. And then what we're talking the next step, feeling the edges and using somatic movements. And after 30 or 40 minutes, his body was lined up without tension. So just also an example in high level sports, how mental emotional pressure will lead to tension when we are not able to address it.
mm, yeah, yeah. So kind of, this first stage of finding ways to connect with the body to feel safer is all about that. It's meeting these
Yeah,
experiences. It's being able to see like what is actually happening, how we're relating with those things that are happening and not overriding them, not avoiding them, not resisting them, not making them a problem, putting the state of fear over the top of, false evidence appearing real and
yeah,
starting to look at things as to, okay, I see what is happening. I can allow this experience. I can let my body process this. So that starting point, that connection. So then, as you were saying, Marcus, the next stage is, and that's where often a lot of people get stuck is like because there's lots of wonderful work around emotional processing, nervous system regulation, all of that sort of stuff. But what we're talking about here is bringing it in context to, well, you've got a body and you want it to
yeah,
move through life. So we need to keep moving forward and apply it to situations where we're going to use your body. But the question is well, like, where do I start? Because I can't just like go into that stretch or do that yoga posture or like I don't even my body might be so unstable. I don't have a base point. And
yeah,
so this next stage is we want to find positions to explore somatic movement. So we'll talk about, yeah, maybe the three key positions.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the first position is just laying on the ground or laying on a massage bed where you feel safe. So you don't have to stable the body, you don't have to hold on to something. Just laying, if you need a cushion because of some pains coming up, then use a cushion so you feel comfortable. And then just start moving the area where you want to move.
Mm,
So, for example, if you have some neck and shoulder pain, just start with your wrists, with your elbow, just laying on the ground and just connecting with the area and working from the outside in so you can really feel how everything is connected and finding areas where you feel safe and areas where movement is feeling good.
mm,
So we are not trying to force the body and going into the areas directly where there's pain. Just move the areas where it feels like a like a well-being trip. So just using those areas in the beginning and then work more to the center of the pain.
Mm. And it can even, like start in bed, like
Yeah,
often, it's funny when I work with people, the idea of like laying on the ground can be really daunting.
that's true.
And like, how do I get down there? And
Yeah.
yeah, like you said, a massage table, and then even the bed. Like, yes, it is useful to lay on the ground because there's a useful saying here of when we meet hard, it encourages soft,
Yeah.
and when we meet soft, it encourages hard in the body.
Yes.
And while the bed is soft, because often, one of the things that I notice is that we are continually faced with situations where we're trying to make our environment soft. And it's no surprise that chronic rigidity and tightness is increasing in our
Yeah.
society because we're meeting these soft surfaces all the time, doing the job of that our body's supposed to do, which is to be able to soften and relax, and we forget how to do it. So
Yeah.
yeah, like meeting the ground is great if you can, because it's hard and it will be uncomfortable initially because it is giving you that signal of, okay, you can soften and make this hard surface bearable. It's sort of like the same thing when I first started walking barefoot. One of the most common things people would ask is, does that not hurt you? But I realized that initially it did because I was resisting. I was tensing up against the ground.
Yeah.
When I learned how to actually soften into the ground, all of a sudden my foot was like always adapting to the changes of surface and they didn't like stick in so hard. So I met the hard to learn to become soft. And so yeah, that first position laying wherever where you are with that, whether you're starting to lay on the bed and just moving your joints around, finding the areas, that do feel safe and at least identifying, oh, okay, it's around these areas that I notice where my instabilities are. At least then we're starting to know where we're going to work. And then we can make a gradual plan and have a clear pathway rather than, oh well, I just can't move because I can't do that posture. And therefore, what's gonna happen as a result of that?
Yeah. And then also see it's not about postures, it's about movement.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
which is a beautiful reframe in that it's not this one fixed position that my body that gets into, it's how I move in and out of all of these different positions.
And when we really start connecting deeper with the body will show you where you want to move.
It's a beautiful
And
process.
then it's just this self-regulation and you just follow, you're following the tension and the body is releasing constantly. Somatic movement, yeah.
So once and not that this is linear because we can explore any of these things. Consider like these 3 areas that we're going through, the first being laying, as like a playground.
Yeah.
Laying is in some ways, it's more simple. It's how we developed as children when we couldn't walk. It's how we learned to move in the beginning,
Yeah.
learning to move our head and our limbs and our spine. And so then we could roll over and then from there, okay, now we can start to get up and we can crawl, which is kind of another area. We could maybe make it 4, laying, crawling, and you don't have to go on crawling, but it can be if it can be challenging for some if you've got some wrist things and that sort of stuff. Like build up gradually. You can start off on your elbows, that sort of stuff. We're still on the ground or on the bed.
Yeah.
Then we're not having to really kind of move against gravity here. It can be our ally and our friend to help things relax and soften. Then we can move up to seated. So if you have trouble, I was talking with this lady, and as soon as she went to stand, her knees would lock. And so that was hard for her to be able to even relax. And,
Yeah.
what I was talking to her about was this analogy of how does a flower open? And we were talking, well, you can't force the flower to open. you can try, but it's not going to really do it any good. But what you can do is you can give it the circumstances to open. So you can give it good nourishment in the soil. You can, it can be in good conditions from the sun, water, all the things. So the same with the body is if there is a situation, so standing is too hard, then we can come back to seated so that then it's a more nourishing situation where you've got more space for the body to start to open up. And
Yeah.
yeah, do you want to go into some things with seated?
Yeah, it's just seated. You can use a chair. It's just simple as that, or using a couch. And if you're feeling comfortable, of course, sitting on the floor will also be a fine thing in terms of using a hard surface, supporting the body with relaxation. And it's not about that you have to sit upright. You can also use your hands when you're on the ground and support you in the seated position. If you're using your legs, you can support your legs with movement. So there are no hard rules. Just find movements where you feel comfortable
Mm,
and where your body is giving you feedback that it's good.
mm,
So it's again not about forcing or reaching for something. It's just about finding the areas where it feels safe and the body's responding with relaxation.
there's one really useful principle that I find with this that I call like load distribution,
Yeah.
and it's really useful. So like you're let's say you're on the seat or you're sitting on the ground. If you find that there is, let's say you were injured through one side of your body, a foot or an ankle or a knee or a hip injury, and whenever you then go into that area that's unstable, it starts to tense up. By using other limbs to start to distribute the load through, we can then control how much weight we put into different areas.
Yeah.
So we can also do this while we're standing as well. But when you're seated, you can have a bit more control, particularly over how much load you distribute into your legs. You could sit on the edge of the chair and like gradually bring your body weight forward to feel more weight going into the legs. You feel the point where it starts to tense up, and then you can spend some time there, and then you come out. So then it's not in this constant state of tension and I can't let go. We can find our tolerance point and gradually build up from there, and then move into, okay, cool. Now I can slowly start to move up to standing in a
Yeah.
relaxed way.
Yeah. The beautiful thing in the ways you were just sharing it, in a way, it's forcing us to be more mindful and to be more precise when moving the body. And if we are using more precision in movement, we will automatically be more efficient, more stable, we have more strength and more flexibility.
Mm.
Let's start exploring somatic movements and diving deeper and deeper and constantly feeling the response and feedback from the body. It's really also a wonderful place for every person, not only for chronic pain, but also for people who are looking to improve their endurance or their strength or whatever, in
Yeah.
terms of being able to have more capacity.
Yeah, it's often, these little kind of moments and mindfully working with the body that is overlooked.
Yeah,
And, I know I did that myself. I saw this. I still remember I was working with some power lifters, and they could lift some big loads,
yeah,
but then they kept getting injured, so that they've got the strength, but they lacked this ability to stabilize and be mindful of all of the things that were happening around their hips and their knees and their ankles. And I tested it by just giving them a scenario of going, okay, well, theoretically, you should be able to squat down on one leg, right? Because you can deadlift and squat all this weight, way more than your body weight. So, but they couldn't. They went to do it. They didn't have the range of movement in this way. They didn't have the stability through the knees and the hips, and they then fell over. And
yeah,
so it does become a question of, what you want to do with your body in the bigger picture. What
yeah,
how do you want to work with it, and how does that transfer to the things that you want to do in your life? Maybe you don't need to be able to, lift the heaviest weight in the gym to feel good, and we can start to look at these things. How can we create scenarios that start to actually get us connected with the body and learn to stabilize it in ways that we actually want to use it in life?
Yeah, and I was talking the other day with the other trainer here in my area, and he's looking at flexibility work and biomechanic in a really simple way. If you are able to touch every millimeter of the body on the ground with controlled movement, then we have a really well moving body. So using all different angles and touching this millimeter with the little thing like just different areas of the hand and foot and going all through the body, you have a practice for your whole life and you will find improvements on a daily basis.
Mm. This is similar to, like, I love watching cats clean themselves. It's the most elaborate
Yeah,
exercise routine as they like lick every area of their body, and like having these novel ways of exploring it, almost like a daily maintenance process to like keep our bodies clean on the inside.
yeah,
And it might not have a fixed form, it might look weird to other people,
it
but
does.
yeah, but at the end of the day, how does it feel, And
Yeah,
what do you learn about your body in the process,
yeah.
you know?
And after that, your body will feel, yeah, way
Yeah,
better than before.
yeah, and how useful is that going to be when you're 50, 60, 70 plus, to
Yes.
have that downloaded in your body to then it's like, I've mapped out the terrain, I like. And while the body does change, it's still there in my, like, muscle memory of, "Oh, I can stabilize and work with my body no matter what situation it's in," rather than if you do get to a point where you get an injury or you do get pain or whatever, it doesn't bring up all these alert signals that then turn into compensations that then lead to chronic conditions, that then lead to, rapid degeneration of the aging process. So we're kind of in that second stage. And we've really talked about the third. So first, we find ways to connect with the body to essentially feel safer. We find positions to explore somatic movement. We
Yeah,
highlighted really four. I started with three, but we added that extra one of laying, crawling, seated, and standing.
yeah,
And then the final thing is like how we continue to explore the edges of where we're at, because we want to find where we are and then gradually build a bridge to where we want to be. Like this lady I was asking, I was like, she said she had trouble with motivation because a lot of the things that she was doing, it wasn't causing enough change for her to want to keep going, which is
yeah,
natural. And so I
yeah,
asked her, I was like, "Well, so what's your goal? Like, what would give you an indication that you want to keep going? What would let you know that it's worthwhile?" And she said, "I just want to be able to walk, and without my knees locking up." So then, as we talked about this process, you know, that's what we would do. We would find where she was at, what was her playground to start? Is it laying? Is it seated? To then build up to standing, to then start to gradually transition across to walking without the body tensing up again. So we're
yeah.
restabilizing those movements. And we'll do that by exploring the edges of joint movement. So you want to talk to that a bit more, Marcus?
Yeah, I had yesterday a session also with a older lady which had some serious injuries, and she was really feeling unstable just standing and walking. And we did just the simple things we outlined. We find a way to connect, and then we were exploring some joint movements. In this case, it was just the feet and toes. And she was already talking to me, oh, now I feel more relaxed. My nervous system is already calming down. And then we were coming back to standing, and I just let her exploring standing. In the beginning, before we connected and did all those stuff, she needed to hold on to something. And then she was just standing near the massage bed, holding on. And then suddenly she was just letting off and telling me, oh, my body's not wobbling. It's just feeling safe now and stable. And she started to walk. And also her association with walking until to this moment was she was always scared just thinking about leaving the house for going to the grocery and buying things. And this was just a wonderful example of integration and capacity, just feeling that the body is able to stand without wobbling, that she's able to take a step without being scared of falling down. And just from there, it's her thing now to do when she's feeling, when she want to do it, the same steps again, and the body will learn and build capacity in a natural way.
It's beautiful. And, that's a wonderful example of freedom. It's different for everyone. It doesn't mean necessarily just doing the splits, although it can,
Yeah,
these big positions. It can be like free and it can change really quickly once we kind of know how to work with the body, you know?
yeah,
Yeah. And so then we don't live in this fear-based reality of my body can't do things, and then I then create this space or a lack of space, more and more restrictions as to how I move through life. And what are the effects of that? We can change that process. We can start to build stability again for whatever it is
yeah.
that we do at any age.
Yeah, just using this simple three-step framework we were talking today, it works definitely.
Mm.
It's not complicated. Yeah.
Yeah. So the moral of the story is no matter what you're facing, whether you might feel pretty good in your body, but that you feel like some things are out of balance. There's some areas that you feel unstable. You can start to go back and explore those areas. You don't have to fix yourself into a set way of practicing. This is looking at things through a more explorative lens. Give yourself some structure, of those playgrounds of laying, crawling, seated positions and standing, and then look at how do I want to apply this to my life? Like bring it back to you, because the freedom that to you is different to the freedom for me. But we all have an idea of where we feel restricted and we all have an idea of where we want to go. And the freedom is in actually like the knowing that we can do it.
Yeah. And there's nothing more empowerment, nothing more empowered. There's no more a self-empowerment in a way where when you know I can challenge my body, and after that, I know exactly what my body needs to integrate this challenge and rebalance without getting stuck
Mm.
from this thing I did. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, that I think as we wrap up, that was probably one of the biggest pieces of freedom that I gained through exploring the body in a more holistic way was the freedom in knowing that my body is my friend,
Yeah.
you know, that I'm not at war with it. It's there, it's a gift that I get to explore and I get to work with, and we're in it together. It was so freeing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then observing the mind, how often you want to escape, but there is no escaping.
Mm. Yeah. I think that opens the can of worms for another conversation.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
if you'd like support in this process, that's what we do in Movement Plus. We'll support you with the practices step by step to work with your body, with wherever you're at, whether you're feeling really debilitated and you're not sure how to restabilize your body and start to improve the way it aligns and moves through life. We'll give you piece by piece and work with you through that process to start to put your best foot forward in life, or whether you want to take your body to the next level and you're really interested as to, well, what is this thing capable of, and that's something that is interesting for you in life, then we can support with that too. So thanks again for tuning in for another video, and I hope it's helpful to continue to build more stability through your body. And we'll see you in another one.
Bye bye.